Can you dream of a world immune to cancer? Hello everyone, my name is Nick and I'm the host of the annual live stream for The Cure, where content creators and podcasters from around the world join me to raise money for the Cancer Research Institute and immunotherapy research, which is training the body's immune system to fight against all forms of cancer. Over the past 7 years, thanks to the power of indie podcasters and the indie podcasting community and listeners just like you listening to this right now, we have raised over $90,000. And as I record this now, the 8th annual live stream for The Cure is barreling down upon us really quickly in just about 2 weeks. So join us please from May 29th through June 1st for 48 hours of amazing content from people all over the world and help us fight for a world immune to cancer. I'll now return you to your regularly scheduled programming. Thank you so much. And together, we can make a difference.
Do you ever think you're nothing? Sometimes I think I'm nothing. Useless.
You're not nothing, Muriel. You're amazing. Remember how you were in school? You were so quiet you could hardly talk. You were too shy to look at people. Now you're a success. And someone wants to marry you. You're not nothing, Muriel. You've made it.
Welcome to part 2 of our Muriel's Wedding episode. But before we go into real talk, it's time for PP, our patron pitch. This is where we let our patrons know what they can expect in their exclusive patron feed, and we also let non-patrons know what they're missing out on. And this is going to be one of those brief, quick PPs because we have to talk about live stream for The Cure. We're really close now. By the time that this episode drops, probably be a week and a half from our spot. So real quick, every patron, whether you are on the $1 tier, the Travoltis, or the $10 tier, the Gats, gets access to our bonus episodes. This month, our bonus episode is on the movie Confessions, a very disturbing movie demanded by patron Ryan. We couldn't get it a couple months ago, the first time that he brought it up, but we finally found it online, and it was well worth it. It's quite a discussion we have about it. So watch Confessions or just listen to a conversation. Either way, you'll have access to it on our Patreon channel. Also, everybody has access to our cutting room floor, so anything that doesn't make it to the main episodes that we think would be interesting or funny or both, that's going to be on our Patreon feed as well. Now, if you want more content, then you move up a tier from the Travoltis to the Winonis, the $3 tier. And then you have access to our pre-recording notes. You also have access to our quick video reviews. Not so quick most of the time. Alex, this month, we are tasked with video reviews from patron Eddie Strait. You're going to be doing Lady Macbeth, a movie from before Florence Pugh became Florence Pugh, in all caps. And I am going to be doing The Brothers Bloom, Rian Johnson movie from before he became the guy who ruined/saved Star Wars, depending on your prerogative. All I know is Rachel Weisz is in it, so that's all I need to know. It's the only Rian Johnson movie I haven't seen. And then, of course, this year also gives you access to Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we tell you about other things that we're watching, that we're listening to, that we're playing, that we're thinking about. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
Well, Julio, just kind of void of anything else really right now. I need to catch up on X-Men 97. I did find myself at a rewatch of, might have been when it came out. I couldn't remember when I watched it, but I revisited Prince Avalanche, a 2013 film starring Paul Rudd and Emile Hirsch. It was written and directed by David Gordon Green, filmed out in Bastrop. The entirety of the movie was filmed out in Bastrop. So just a stone's throw away from myself and Julio. Interesting movie.
You talk about Halloween's David Gordon Green?
Exactly. The savior of the Halloween franchise, David Gordon Green. I have thoughts. It's a very interesting performance by Paul Rudd. And yeah, we'll be discussing Prince Avalanche. What about yourself, Julio?
Guy Ritchie has a new movie out. I don't think it's doing very well, Alex. I think that by the time that this After Hours sees the light of day, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare might be gone from theaters. But if you're curious about it, I'll tell you what it was like watching it on this After Hours. It has Henry Cavill in it, Carrie Elves, Isa Gonzalez from Baby Driver. She's she's John Hamm's girlfriend in that movie. It was a Guy Ritchie movie, and it wasn't a bad... I'll tell you this, it wasn't a bad Guy Ritchie movie. And then, those of you who remember my Shudder saga from a few months ago, I ended up with a 1-year subscription by accident. And so I have to use it for something. And a bunch of my friends were talking about this movie, Infested. It's a French movie about spider invasion in a building. That's all you need to know to figure out if you want to watch it or not. But if you need more details, I will be talking about watching Infested on the After Hours. So, and then if you want to be part of those patrons that tell us what to do, that give us things to watch, well, that's when you kick it up to the $5 tier, the Winonis, or the $10 tier, the Gads. Then you get to control the feed somewhat. You get to control the show a little bit. So, go to patreon.com/Contrarian Prime, look at the tiers, and see how you would like to join the Contrarian supplements.
So, Julio, before we move on, be sure to thank all of our current patrons and say we love y'all dearly. That covers the patron side of things. That covers the capitalism. Let's talk about something noble that we're doing. And it's not us. We're fortunate enough to be included in this, but a noble cause that our friends in the podcasting community every year have pushed the word for and worked tirelessly for. And again, to reiterate, we're just lucky to be a part of it.
Yes. Done with capitalism. Now let's move on to idealism, I think is what we would call it. The live stream for the cure, raising money for cancer research. Nick Haskins and his team, they've been doing this for years now. I think this is year 8, maybe. And we've joined them the past few years. The live stream runs from May 29th to June 1st, from noon to midnight every day. It's just non-stop podcasters raising money, putting on a show to convince people to just make a donation or two. Our show, The Contrarians, are going to be there on the last day, June 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 p.m. Central. That is, ask Google what that time is if you're not in Central or Eastern times. But the internet will help you make sure that you don't miss our segment. Ideally, you're going to be there for the entire live stream, just supporting the entire project. But if you're short on time, at the very least, make time to hear Alex and I take on Disney, animated Disney movies. That's going to be the subject matter of our segment. We're going to be doing Contrarian treatments, mini Contrarian treatments of Disney movies, and the audience, the people that are going to be listening there live, are going to be throwing titles at us. They're going to be determined how the segment goes. So it should be fun. The Contrarians take on Disney. And it's time now we can reveal what our goals are. As we did in the past few years, we have 4 different tiers of donations. So you don't have to donate. You can just join the fun, be a spectator. But if you feel like donating, you're going to be helping this cause. So if we reach $250 in donations, that's the first tier. That's going to unlock a special episode proposed by Alex to do on the main feed.
Well, Julio will get to our next 2 tiers, but the idea is we're bringing things to the table to kind of make the other one cringe and hopefully result in an entertaining discussion. So 250, our first tier. Once we crack that, we will be setting aside for a future bonus episode 3 from Hell, written and directed by Rob Zombie, starring Sherry Moon, Bill Moseley, Richard Brake, an aging, sadly dying Sid Haig has an appearance in the movie as well. This was the sequel to The Devil's Rejects. Well documented that I am a gigantic fan of The Devil's Rejects. This one, not so much, but as I mentioned, could yield some interesting discussion. And if we get to $500, the second tier, that's where Julio's villainous plan begins to unfold.
It is time for Alex to finally watch one of Steven Spielberg's most successful recent movies, I would say, and that is the West Side Story remake from a few years ago. So if we make it to $500 on donations, Alex and I, we're going to have to cover West Side Story Spielberg edition on the show. Guest starring Baby Driver. Man, this is going to be so much fun. Guys, help us get to $500. Because that's the only way that Alex is ever going to watch this movie. So let's make it happen. The next year is also punishment for Alex. It's a $750 tier. Last year, we raised a little over $600. So far, we're within range of what we did last year. Mm-hmm. Now, we're stretching our goals. $750, that's a big ask, but a big ask with a big return. So once again, this one, mostly to punish Alex. But if we make it to $750 in donations, we are going to do an episode on Hamilton. Yes, Hamilton, the musical, qualifies as a movie of sorts. We can cover it because it's on Disney Plus, and Alex is going to have to sit through all 2.5 hours, I think, of nonstop singing from Lin-Manuel Miranda. And then we're going to have to do it on the show. So, come on. If that is not worth $750 in donations, I don't know. I guess we have different priorities. Alex, you came up with the reward for the $1,000 in donations. That's our final goal. Yes. If we make it to $1,000 in donations, I mean, first of all, we're just going to get drunk and probably disappear from social media for about a week just to celebrate.
Yeah.
But when we come back,
popping
what
bottles.
Are we doing, Alex?
Well, this would be a lofty undertaking, but in the vein of years ago with our good friend Chaz Fisher. This would be exclusive to me and Julio, but I do want to call out Chaz's part in it. We did a retrospective on the entire franchise of The Terminator. So if we hit our top goal of $1,000 during our hour, we will be doing a complete retrospective on the Child's Play film franchise. I do specify film, as myself and Julio aren't going to sit down and watch that television show from USA.
Okay, but you have to specify also, are we including the latest one?
Absolutely. All 8. We'll be doing Child's Play from 1988, Child's Play 2, which is a tremendous movie, Child's Play 3, Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, and the 2019 Child's Play remake. So there it is. You know, the way that episode will play out, if we'll do it in multi-parts, that is yet to be determined. But just keep that in mind. If you want to make a donation of $1, whatever. The bigger message here is anything is appreciated during our hour and during the entire live stream. Anything you want to throw their way, it goes to a wonderful cause. And yeah, we're just trying to up the stakes to try to give our listeners a bit of motivation, enticing offers with what your dollar can get you. But $250, 3 from Hell, 500 West Side Story, 750. What's it called? Hamilton. And then if we hit the jackpot, the full Monty of $1,000, the Contrarians retrospective on the Child's Play franchise.
And like we said, it's worth repeating, even if you don't donate, your presence helps a lot. We
absolutely
just tell people to come in and join. All you need is access to Twitch, and it's easy to set it up, and then you just have the live stream playing in the background. It's a lot of fun. All right, that's it, Alex. Done with capitalism, done with idealism. It's time to just go back to Australia.
If I had to do the same again, I would, my friend Perennial.
All right, Julio. Muriel's Wedding premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 15th of 1984. Was then released in Australia on September 29th of 1994. A estimated budget of $9 million for a pretty respectable box office return of close to $60 million. We had some titans of the critical world weighing in, from Roger Ebert to Peter Travers. I'm curious the reviews you pulled. As we mentioned, 81% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a movie that's obviously historically significant for the Toni Collette debut of sorts. She also got a Golden Globe nomination for this, for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. We'll circle back to that here momentarily. The first half, we didn't hear from Ebert or Peter Travers, so I'm curious what naysaying that you found for us here. Mainly, I'm curious what the critiques were, because I think this movie is flawed in certain aspects. I'm curious to hear them and see if they were contemporary or retrospective.
Well, would you consider Owen Gleiberman a titan? Entertainment Weekly's Owen Gleiberman?
I think so. I mean, Ebert and Travers, that's fucking Tyson and Ali up there. So it's
Who's Gleiberman? Duran?
well, I mean, I was about to say, how do you know who fucking Roberto Duran is? But then I remembered there was a movie a few years ago that had Bob De Niro in it, Hands of Stone. Ellen Barkin was in that movie too. My God, I remember Sugar Ray Leonard was played by Usher, and that was like the biggest intrigue surrounding it. But I still have not yet to see it.
Yeah, Ellen Barkin plays Duran, and it's pretty amazing.
It's like fuck. What's the movie where Cate Blanchett plays Bob Dylan? I'm Not There.
Yeah.
Ebert said the movie was merciless in its portrait of provincial society and yet had a huge affection for its misfit survivors. Has a lot of big and little laughs in it, but also a melancholy undercurrent which reveals itself toward the end of the film in a series of surprises and unexpected developments. This film's good heart keeps it from ever making fun of Muriel, although there are moments that must have been tempting. And then Travers said it's exuberantly funny, a crowd pleaser that spices a tired formula with genuine feeling. In the final scenes, when Hogan dares to let his humor turn edgy, Collette's performance gains in force. In Muriel's Wedding, it becomes a date you want to keep. I could see both of those having contemporary merit, as we talk about a lot of time, though, with movies like this that are just kind of like there. As time goes on, negatives of them come to light. So what were the negative reviews you pulled, Julio? Let's see if they call out any of the things that I thought of today while watching this movie.
Well, we'll start with demigod Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly, who says, the trouble with the movie is that there's nothing to Muriel but her false dreams. We never quite glimpse the woman they're hiding. I think that's part of the fun of the movie, like chipping away at all the falseness, I think, surrounding Muriel until you get to see, I think you get to see the real person at the end. Am I giving it too much credit?
I don't think so. No.
Right? You see Muriel become Toni Collette, like actual Toni Collette at the end. It's like, and then she went on to play Toni Collette characters. Alex Sandel from Juicy Cerebellum says, so overrated. My Big Fat Greek Wedding for the 90s. This is obviously
that's
a contemporary review.
I've still never seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
I've seen it. There's 3 of them now, Alex. I've seen the first one. Kelly liked it a lot, so she is one of
Is
those
it my
movies
bigger Fat Greek Wedding and then my biggest Fat Greek Wedding?
Should be, right? But nope.
Yeah.
Just 2 and 3, I think. It's fine. It's a fun wedding movie. I think that it gets by a lot of the charm of it, if it works for you, is in just seeing the
that
Greek
thing was
culture.
A sensation.
Oh yeah, it was a thing, right? But watching, because I watched it so many years after, so I wasn't caught up on the hype. I was just like, oh yeah, it's that movie, and Nia Vardalos, the one that wrote it and stars in it. Man, I don't remember if she directed it, but anyway, she was a big star for I don't know, like a little bit, and then she kind of faded away, and then she's had like a couple of comebacks, I guess, whenever the sequels have come up. But at the by the time I watched it, it wasn't that thing that was everywhere. It was just like, I remember from years prior. And it's a fun, it's a wedding comedy, but it's very much about its Greek culture. I don't know how accurate it is in its representation. I imagine it is accurate because that's one of the things that was so celebrated about it. But obviously it's a crowd pleaser, right? And maybe I can see how people like Alex Sandel thought that critics and audiences might have been a little too in love with it. Mm-hmm. Would you apply that to Muriel's Wedding? I don't know. It gave us Toni Collette. Even if that was the only thing that this movie accomplished, I think that earns it a spot in film history books. That's where the argument starts, and then you can go in different directions. Jonathan Rosenbaum from the Chicago Reader says, the movie only shows true tact and understanding when it comes to flattering the audience. Everyone on screen is strictly up for grabs. I'm not even sure I understand what he's saying as far as flattering the audience. I don't know that this is a crowd pleaser in the standard sense. I mean, I'm thinking that that's what he means by flattering the audience, right? By giving the audience what they want. Or is it that flattering in the sense that it makes the audience feel good about themselves because everybody else in the movie is so shitty?
Everyone's so fucking evil in this. It's like a relief.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies you watch and go, shit, my problems aren't that bad.
I'm glad I don't live in Australia.
Thank God I'm not that guy. Yeah.
I'm going to close with TV Guide. No critic credited here. Says, ultimately, the comedy here is grounded in self-hatred, hostility, and despair. Is this movie too mean, Alex? Or at the times you said that it's not perfect, it has its flaws. It's one of its flaws that it's too mean. We joked about it.
The flaw to me is that like it tries to be too funny in certain parts. I think it's a very interesting perspective. So no, I don't think this movie's too mean. I don't think this movie's great. I understand what it's trying to do and what it did to relative success for its time. Like I mentioned, pretty healthy box office return for its budget. And I think Toni Collette's doing all right these days, Julio. Any update on this, as I like to say on Twitter sometimes? But I think, no, you asked me a simple question. I don't think this movie's too mean. That I was already trying to just take the floor for real talk. So I'll just stop there and say I do not think this movie's too mean.
Well, I mean, that was the last quote, so feel free to elaborate as you were doing, because both times, this is my second time watching it, both times I felt a little shaken by, I mean, the movie wants me to be shaken, obviously, that's not a mistake, that's not an accident, but by the fates that befall Rhonda and Betty, right? That's the name of the mom?
Yes.
Yeah. Both times, it's not so much that they take me out of the movie, but more than, we're all having fun and then it all comes to a screeching halt.
The operation's all we need for the moment.
For the moment.
There's a minor risk of damage to the spinal cord.
What's that mean?
It means a map shit creaks, that's what it means.
It's not even, I like the movie, but those are the parts where I just have to reconfigure my expectations and just readjust and be like, oh yeah, it's not just about how funny it is that this woman is lying to everybody and just trying to live this fantasy, just have this delusion of being an adult when she's really not an adult, and so on. But then the one good character in the movie, or one of the few good characters in the movie, gets really sick and loses the ability to walk, and then the truly innocent character in the movie is pushed to the brink of suicide. Not the brink, I mean, just pushed to suicide, and that's rough stuff. So my reaction is to not necessarily agree with that critic that says that the humor is cruel or whatever, but it's just to kind of see where they're coming from, right? If it shakes you a little too much, you might break away from the narrative, from following the story, and be like, fuck this. Yeah. I thought that we were here to have fun, and now you're putting this on me, and how am I supposed to feel about it? And then you expect me to go back to having a good time, right? And because then there's the wedding, and there's the ABBA of it all, and her entire relationship with the swimmer. It goes back and forth, and we've had movies where that definitely didn't work for us, and we call them out, but in this one it seems to work. And so are you telling me that you think this movie would be even better if it wasn't trying to be funny?
Yes. And that's not to say that dramatic movies or serious movies or observations of the human nature can't have comedy in them. There's plenty of opportunity for comedy in this, and there's plenty of opportunity to still include fucking ABBA in it. Not as much, because that's kind of the gimmick, but one of my favorite parts of the whole movie is when she goes back and like everything's just crumbling around her, and she listens to Dancing Queen and just kind of really half-assed sings along with it, and you can see like the despair and depression in her. I think that's a tremendous moment in the movie. I just think that going for some of the comedy, okay, perfect example, how you can make like a movie like this without forcing laughs. She's like so goofy in certain parts of this, and you know the whole scene where they go back and her Rhonda's having sex with those two guys, and it's really loud and like that. That's just added there for audiences to kind of giggle at. But there's also very subtle, hilarious shit in this movie. I'm thinking specifically of when she comes back home after the trip, and she's got like that very clear, just like sunburn on her face in a very specific pattern that's not really addressed. You know, she's just kind of there and standing and having like, you know, sustained dialogue, and no one's like calling out the fact that her face is all fucking burnt. Just in, you know, it's the forehead, nose, and the two cheeks. It looks like, you know, if you pressed your face into like a pile of flour, how you would come out looking. It's very funny. I think for some of the observations this movie tries to make, it's also fair to say if they try to treat this more seriously, it would be way more depressing if there wasn't like a comedic side to it. This whole thing of this poor girl just so desperate to get married that she literally sells her soul just to have her wedding. If you weren't pitching that in a romantic comedy or like just kind of a comedic light, that could be really, really fucking sad. So I can see, you know, both sides to it. It's also retrospective judgment. Before we started recording, listeners, myself and Julio were talking about some of the dated tropes of this movie that fucking Toni Collette's supposed to be the ugly duckling. Like it's we made some comparisons to Never Been Kissed, where Drew Barrymore is supposed to be undesirable. And you know, it's I say this every time we talk about shit like this. Everyone's beautiful to somebody. So I'm not here to say that like there's a right actor to be ugly, but it is funny to watch a movie that tried at one point in time to proffer that Toni Collette was not attractive, and it's that ages questionably as well. So there's something really good to this movie. It's buried somewhere in there, and this movie, the way it comes across is, to me, a little bit of a mess. I enjoy it. I should make that clear. I just felt that, you know, if you move some of the parts around or, you know, used a different light on some of the aspects of this, you could have taken something good and made something great. Now, very important to call out PJ Hogan's first swing at the bat and Toni Collette's first, you know, performance in a leading role. And God, what a sign of things to come, because how good is she in this, man? Even if you don't like all of this movie through and through, like the subject material and the dialogue or how things are pulled off, whatever, Toni Collette just fucking bringing the bacon, man. She literally, from her first leading role, just a fantastic performance. She is amazing. She's the reason, I think, why because you're right, it's messy. It's messy, and I think that some of it is just I'm not going to say a cultural thing, because it's not. I mean, Australian listeners, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, there's no scenes of this where it's like, oh, Vegemite again, Mom. Oh God, where's the fairy bread? No, I think that it feels messy more because the movies that I'm used to watching are structured a very certain way, and this is more like the indie. So, you know, you watch an American indie movie and it also can feel messy, you know, because it's just maybe because they're independent, there's a lot less studio interference, which means that there's a lot less of a blueprint that they follow. And so I think that maybe once you get that big studio money, then you're forced to change your vision and tighten some things up. And whereas like here, it's like, I could be wrong, but it feels like PJ Hogan was like, all right, this is the movie I want to make. And we're going to take all the big swings that we can. But it works, I think. Whereas, you know, it could not work if you didn't have a leading actress that's doing what Toni Collette does here. Like she, like you said, she brings the bacon. She is so charming and funny. As you were talking about how, oh, well, it's just so hard to buy her as the ugly duckling. That's ridiculous. It is. Right, but it goes beyond the physical thing. It's also the character Muriel is supposed to be pitched on the level of just being annoying, right? I mean, not to the audience, but she has to be annoying to the other characters. She has to be almost too quirky to function. That character, if you don't get an actress like Toni Collette to play her, then it could be the downfall of the movie. It would also, though, make it very easy to believe
that she is such a loser in the world of the movie. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? You get an actress that's so good, as good as Toni Collette, that it makes the entire movie work, despite whatever flaws, whatever messiness. But at the same time, she's so good and she's so charismatic that when you take a step back, you're like, yeah, but this doesn't, it doesn't hold water that she would be, that Toni Collette would be this unpopular. But that's fine. I think that's the one big ask from the movie. They're like, please buy that Toni Collette is really...
please clap.
Yeah, please get on board with this part, and then everything else is gonna be smooth sailing. And it is, because Toni Collette is there, and she's just really funny. I think that the silliness of the Muriel character, she really pulls it off every time that she sticks her tongue out or she laughs inappropriately.
Yeah, and I really liked that scene with was it Bryce?
I have to tell you something. I'm a parking inspector.
I really like that when they're making out and she's just so like overjoyed. She just has like that loud laughter as he's like, trying to round second and third. We recently discussed that we don't know what the bases are in different countries. So whatever cricket analogies y'all use in Australia, that part's so fun and like it feels genuine. And that's why how that scene ends is like, wait, what? That her friend has cancer. That goes back to what you're talking about, though, about being messy. Is independent films not as much like producers to come in and say, what the fuck? You got to connect this shit better. And that's where some of the messiness comes in. That whole subplot with Rhonda, I understand its purpose, and it does serve a purpose to the movie. But it's so, well, I would say it's, haphazard or kind of just like out of nowhere, but that's real life works that way. So I guess my critique of that would be in line with it just shifts tones so quickly that it takes me a while to readjust. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, because when you go into a movie and you're trying to figure out the movie, right? The first 30 minutes or so, you're trying to figure out what the tone is, what the genre is.
This thing has fucked me for life. This podcast has just ruined me forever, because anytime I watch a movie, like I'm immediately just trying to figure out the tone and all right, where's this going? And
but I think that we always do. It's just that now I think that we're a little more conscious that we're doing it. But I think that's
fair,
just the standard experience. You sit down, and I think the movie has probably 20 to 30 minutes where it has to teach you how to watch it and what kind of movie it is, right? It's like, we're going to make this type of joke. We're going to have this type of like serious moment. This is what the performance is going to be like. This, if there's going to be action, this is what the action is going to look like, and so on. And yeah, the thing with Rhonda is that I can tell you exactly when in the movie it happens, but it feels like we had a pretty good idea of what the movie is offering. And then this happens. And yeah, this the kind of thing that in real life sneaks up on you. And in a certain type of movie, like a drama of sorts, it also, you're like, oh, well, it's because it mirrors reality a little more. But here in something like Muriel's Wedding, it's not something that you're expecting. Now, once it happens, at least in my case, right? Once Rhonda gets sick and just seeing how that develops, that's when the movie teaches me, okay, but some really nasty stuff is going to happen. We're not, don't think that it's safe. Like, really sympathetic characters are going to get hurt, and it's not just going to be all laughs. And, so it kind of sets the groundwork for what happens with the mother later. But it's still jarring. And it's still,
well, I don't know about that. I don't know if it sets the groundwork, because life happens in the way, we see with Rhonda. The shit with the mom is just so sad. She literally is like crying for help, and the dad ignores her. And then I knew when she was doing that, like longing, pensive look out the window of her kitchen, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And the phone call comes and kind of confirms that and whatnot.
Well, but I'm not saying that it makes it easier to watch or that, makes it any less sad. But I'm just, imagine if we didn't have the subplot with Rhonda getting sick.
Oh, and then, that happens at the end. Jesus
like,
Christ.
What the fuck? And then we're here
the
having a
Rhonda
good time.
subplot. Yeah, the Rhonda subplot does enough to inject like real life into the story.
Yeah. And I mean, credit to Rachel Griffiths. We're in real talk now. She's great in 6 Feet Under. I was not kidding, though. Her character is very difficult to take. That show is 5 seasons, and she, like all the characters, she has her ups and downs, and she can be very frustrating. She never hits this type. It's not that type of show, obviously, but she never hits these notes. Here she is ray of sunshine. She's just that. She's the adrenaline shot in Pulp Fiction. She just comes in and injects life into the movie, and she's very likable. And even in the way that she handles her situation, I found her, because there's this danger that you turn her into this tragic character. She gets sick, she can't walk, now she's in a wheelchair, and then, man, is she just going to be a downer every time she shows up in the movie? Is it like where it's impossible for the movie to be lighthearted anymore? But she's still sassy, and she still has, her spirit, and a lot of everything that we liked about the character before she gets sick, she still has it. Even she calls Muriel out on her bullshit. It's great. So it's a really good performance, because also it never feels like it's not genuine. It doesn't feel like she's not reacting in a logical, realistic way to her new situation. She tries to take it in stride, and then eventually she loses hope and she gets angry, and then she regains hope at the end. Did you buy that? Because I think that's crucial at the very end. Were you able to forgive Muriel the way that she forgave her?
Yeah, because also they're in their early 20s. I remember conflicts of not this severity, but I got it. And for this movie also, that's the arc of it. And so, I had no issue in letting them, make good and then wander off together. I thought, and I really, I actually rewound it and watched it twice over, the closing sequence of the movie when they leave she like wheels her down the ramp of the house and they get into the cab, and the friends are all perturbed and they basically tell them to pack sand. But then the mom has like the emotional goodbye with Rhonda, and they're leaving town, and like the climax of it. Like, it's true that ABBA is a bit much in this. It almost feels like overkill, but the way it circles back around there with Dancing Queen at the end, I was just like, oh, this is awesome. Like the ending, and even as silly and 90s as it is, where they goodbye street, goodbye mall, and then they both look at each other, goodbye porpoise spit. It's so silly, but it's so well executed that I really enjoyed the closing sequence of the movie. And like
it's
I said,
so happy.
Yeah, exactly. It's so not saccharine, because it didn't give me a toothache, but it was enough to make me happy. It made me happy enough to rewind it and watch it twice over.
It's happy enough that I felt it overcame the sadness of the bad things that had happened. Because I was not kidding, Guitars Corner. I could have used a little more retribution when it comes to the father.
Absolutely. I was going to jump in there a few minutes ago about that. I don't think he is served an intense enough sentence for being, one, just a piece of shit, and then two, like borderline evil. And by piece of shit, I mean like a corrupt politician and whatnot. And obviously, he dealt with the law, I guess, in that aspect, but he fucked his family up. And I mentioned it in Contrarians Corner and in Real Talk just a few minutes ago. She's literally begging him for help, and he turns the radio on and just says, I'm fucking done with you. And then, the next scene, she's dead. And so I agree. We do get the satisfaction of Muriel standing up to him, but I don't think he gets a bad enough sentence. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They try to give him kind of a bit of a graceful exit, because he's like, oh, well, he's going to go watch the game with his other daughter and have a beer. It's like, no, fuck him. Just end the scene where she's like, you're on your own, bye. And, don't even give him the check. I understand, she gives the money because it's about her paying her debts, and that's part of her journey. But still, so see, that would maybe sour me a little bit on the movie, but it ends on such a high with that final sequence with Rachel Griffiths and Toni Collette driving away and yelling their goodbyes.
The Simpsons, where Mr. Burns finally finds Homer's mom because she ruined his chemical lab 30 years prior. he's getting ready to storm the house and, you know, have the police arrest her. And he says, I've been waiting for this day for, you know, decades. And then he puts this tape on and it starts playing Ride of the Valkyries. Dun, 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 and then it goes, Waterloo, couldn't escape if I wanted to. And then the camera like pans down and Smithers is like, I apologize, sir. I must have taped over that. So I bring that up to say when they started singing that song, I just immediately started laughing out loud thinking about that.
All right. Well,
it is good though. The musical, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but to finish the thought on that, jokes aside, I really enjoyed that musical number, specifically Toni Collette in it. Can we talk about how good of an actress Toni Collette is for a second, Julio? I mean, Jesus. She starts it not having any confidence in herself.
Yep.
And she's just kind of going through the motions and looking around like, oh God, these people are looking at me. And by the end of the song, she's just fucking killing it because Rhonda the whole time is like, you know, undeserved levels of confidence in her performance. And they keep going through it. And by the end, it's just, they're hitting their marks and it's wonderful. Where this movie succeeds the most is in its subtlety. And for the most part, this is not a subtle movie, but that scene in particular from choreography, but then also just the way it's pulled off, I thought was tremendous.
Yes. It's the most I've liked an ABBA performance. I don't like Mamma Mia. It's just, you know, the tone is not for me. It's very kitschy. And I know obviously it has an audience. There are people that love, I can't fathom going to see the play, right? Like seeing it on stage, even though you could have the best performers belting those songs in a much better way than Pierce Brosnan and Stellan Skarsgård and whoever, right? But it's still just, there's something about the way that the movie is pitched that I just can't get on board. And so I don't walk away from watching Mamma Mia, which I've seen twice, oddly enough, thinking, fuck yeah, ABBA. But this movie does that for me. You know, most of the times when it's not just that musical number, but that bit at the end and the way that they connect the music to the characters' emotions, right? And it's just very, you know, you called it out, like when she's just thinking about it and kind of singing along, but in automatic, you know, as things are really bad. But then when right after that dance number with Rhonda, and they're just lying down on the grass and they're singing Fernando, and it's like that says something about that scene, that says something about that relationship, and it makes you happy. You know, this movie made ABBA work for me in a way that ABBA by itself hasn't done. In a movie that was fully centered around ABBA, like Mamma Mia also hasn't done it. So it's really cool. And I think that's one of the reasons why the ending works so well, because, you know, they bring back that music again and it's just very happy.
No, yeah. Dancing Queen is quite literally like the overture. Like it keeps us, it's the through line, and that's fine the way it works. I really enjoy that.
Craig Robinson would be proud of the way that PJ Hogan weaves it all throughout the movie.
That's, God, we're so in sync in that, but that's what I always think of. Shh. If we don't hear the overture, we won't understand the musical overtones throughout the play. I do love as a character moment too. I don't really like the wedding scene, and I think that's kind of where the movie jumps the shark, is her like signing up for that false marriage. But I love that the I do song starts playing, and the groom is like horrified, and she's got that big goofy smile on her face, like walking down the aisle while that song's playing. Just because that's something like I would do or something, you know, that has, if you really like a band, you know, that you have to, I could see myself like playing Jane by Jefferson Starship from Wet Hot American Summer, like if I get married or something. So I get that. And I really appreciated that. Like I said, just a good character moment.
Okay, so I agree with you that the green card, let's call it a green card marriage, is also, I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but it's much like the subplot with Rhonda and some of the other developments. It comes out of nowhere, right? Like we knew that she was kind of obsessed with the idea of weddings and so on, but, you know, without any real setup, suddenly one day she's looking through the paper, and then the next scene she's interviewing for the position of this guy's wife. And yeah. I didn't get to put it on. I had it on my notes. I didn't get to bring it up in the first corner, but it's like that's halfway through the movie. I think we're like an hour in when this happens, and it becomes it morphs into a different kind of movie, right? Like this is what, if this had happened in the first 20 minutes or so, then you know what kind of movie you're getting. Oh, it's about this fake marriage, this green card marriage, and this girl that really wants it, and this guy that's in there for very different reasons and so on. But that's not it. And so again, it's jarring in a way because we're used to, at least I know I'm used to seeing this set up much earlier in the movie and then have it define what the rest of the movie is going to be. But here is just another chapter in the Mural saga. And it has its moments. I really like that the groom, the eventual husband, starts very standoffish and horrified of what he's gotten into, but then eventually grows to see her as a human being. I like that when she breaks up with him, she says, "I don't love you." And he goes, "Well, I don't love you either, but I figure we can still hang out." Did you at least buy that relationship, or were you completely closed off to that development?
No, I like the way it ended. When she tells him, good luck at the games, and he says, "You too."
Yeah. And
you can't read if he's just kind of crestfallen by the moment, doesn't know what else to say, or just like literally understands the game of life or whatever. I just thought that was a really nice moment between the two of them. And, it is weird. It's in line with a few of the weird things in this movie of he sees her at, her lowest, and that's when he decides to make his move. But yeah, that whole story, that subplot with him is very clunky.
It gave me some of the bigger laughs though, because his coach, I guess, the guy that's, the older man that's putting this together, I really like his delivery and how he keeps orchestrating everything. How he keeps shutting him off every time he wants to get somebody else, not Toni Collette. The coach will bring something else up. It's like, "No, you didn't like that one," or "No, that one was not even an Australian citizen." And when they're at the wedding, and he goes, he's like, "We should have hired some people to be your friends," so that you got people at the wedding. And I felt that it came out of nowhere, but at least I found it entertaining. So I think that's why I give it a pass.
Well, it's up to you now, love. Would you find it difficult to lie?
I could try.
Well, don't rush your decision, but if you could let us know by tomorrow morning.
So tell me about these Golden Globes, Alex. Was it just Toni Collette, or was there love for PJ Hogan or the movie as a whole?
It was just Toni Collette. As far as the Golden Globes go, it wasn't up until the next circle of awards. So it was 96 when it was up for awards, I guess as you say, when it did get its Golden Globe nomination. It wasn't 95, despite it coming out in 1994. So this was the year of Babe. This was the year of Toy Story. This was the year of Leaving Las Vegas, Apollo 13, Braveheart. Somehow Sense and Sensibility won the fucking Golden Globe for Best Drama.
I mean, it's a great movie, but...
Anyway, the reason we're here, Toni Collette, Muriel's Wedding. She was nominated for Actress in Best Performance in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. She was nominated alongside Vanessa Redgrave, A Month by the Lake, Sandra Bullock, While You Were Sleeping, of course starring Peter Gallagher, Annette Bening for The American President. Hey. That's in Contrarians canon. All of them lost out to Nicole Kidman, though, for To Die For.
Good movie.
I've never seen that. I need to.
I'm glad that she at least got nomination.
Honestly, like looking at this whole lineup from that year, that's like such an outlier. Like it seemed like a very honest attempt to point out that like, hey, we know this movie didn't get quite the pub of these other ones we're talking about, but she was quite excellent in this. And obviously it wasn't in vain because, again, any update on this? Toni Collette turned out all right?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think that this was probably, it's not like she needed nomination to go on to bigger things. I would like to believe that it was just that the movie and her work in the movie would have given her the career that she has, even if she hadn't gotten that recognition from whoever puts on the Golden Globes, the foreign press. Is that what it is? Now, I remember, Alex, that when this movie came out, or at least when it came out in Peru, I would see TV ads for it, TV commercials, and it seemed like a very funny, kind of weird comedy, but it was like, I remember them selling it to you as just a straight up comedy, like Wedding Crashers or something. Not that I would think Wedding Crashers at the time because that movie hadn't come out yet, but you know what I mean? Like that type of marketing. Yeah. I'm assuming that the marketing was the same.
I mean, the poster, looks very whimsical and very fun.
You would never imagine that this woman's mother is not going to make it to the end of the movie.
I have to get my face really close to the screen to read what the poster says. It says a comedy about a small town girl who didn't fit in, but is about to learn how to stand out. All right, there you go. And then Muriel's Wedding in like really fun font. Oh, wow. It had 2 taglines. And the one, it says, she's not just getting married, she's getting even. Jesus.
The alternate poster is like, there are no clean getaways.
God damn it. You beat me to it. Every time. But yeah, I could see that. Like what we've talked about so far is all retrospective analyzing. You could have easily in 1994 marketed this as it's a romantic comedy, even though there's really no love interest in it. It's just like, oh, it's fun. You know, go see it. This girl is, she's quirky. Oh, she's going to slip on a banana peel. Oh, her mom committed suicide.
It's okay, ABBA. Well, it made it to Peru. It made
real
a splash.
Quick, I just wanted to bring this up real quick, so hold your thought on that, about the ABBA thing. Uh-huh. The music of ABBA forms the backbone of the film's soundtrack. Songwriters Bjorn Ulvaeus and Benny Andersson allowed the use of their music in the film, and they permitted Dancing Queen to be adapted as an orchestral piece. Additional ABBA songs included Waterloo and I Do. Here's the thing. ABBA only gave permission for their music to be included in the film 2 weeks before shooting commenced. The filmmakers were considering changing Muriel's favorite band to the Village People. So, 2 weeks before filming commenced, this huge central aspect of the movie was still fucking in the air. I love that so much.
What were they dancing to in that iconic dance number now? If it's a YMCA?
I guess. Macho Man in the Navy. Those are the only Village People songs I know.
Well, let's go a little bit with PJ Hogan. It's not like I know him. Not that I know Bogdanovich very well, but PJ Hogan is less of a, he's made less movies. And I think that it's not like with Bogdanovich, we're like, oh, he was a movie critic. And then, he was friends with Orson Welles and so on. Like PJ Hogan is a lot more low key when it comes to that kind of backstory. But I remember the movie made it to Peru, and he made it as a sort of like an acclaimed movie. And I remember reading even back then, like about the behind the scenes and who is this guy. And the one thing I remember, I'm assuming it's true, was that PJ Hogan came up with the idea for the movie just from seeing, I guess he lived near a wedding shop, something. But basically he would constantly be seeing brides being really excited whenever they tried their dresses on and so on. And he thought, you could make a movie about this. I don't know at what point the friend that loses the ability to walk and the mother's suicide, at what point that came into the formula. But but the seed of it, seems pretty happy and harmless enough. And this movie made him to the point that his next movie that we will also cover on the show, he was working with Julia fucking Roberts. So yeah, it's a huge deal, and he's stuck with the wedding gimmick. Keep your ears peeled because there's more PJ Hogan to come. But right now, based on this, Alex, I know you haven't seen My Best Friend's Wedding, so I am wondering if this is shaping your expectations of what that movie is going to be, having seen his first wedding movie.
Not necessarily. With Julia Roberts involved, all bets are off. So I'm still going to go into that movie as a blank slate.
Creme brulee can never be Jell-O. You could never be Jell-O.
Have to be Jell-O.
You're never gonna be Jell-O.
Before we get there, though, we need to do a Bogdanovich film, but also we need to finally score this bad boy or this bad girl. What do you give Muriel's Wedding, Alex?
All right, so we've already gone in on some of the things that work, that don't work. There, I do need to call out here before I give my score. There are some of these like '90s trappings of just like, man, what the fuck, that we didn't really get into here in the second half. But like, you know, Toni Collette being called fat, and just like, what are you talking about? And also, there's a bit of like joking in reference to sexual assault kind of throughout the movie that's not funny. And it's kind of played for laughs. And so there's a few things that kind of remind you of the time period the movie was made in. And look, if your movie's good enough, you won't suffer from any of that. But the problem is, especially in the 90s, 80s and 90s, people fell into trappings like that. And there are momentary instances in this movie where it completely took me out of it. It took me a while to get back into it. That being said, as clunky as the story is, there's still an interesting story being told. The lead performance is phenomenal because it's fucking Toni Collette, and then the people around her, even if their stories seem a bit disjointed, there's really no bad acting in this movie. So I think this is a solid, for what it is, good movie. That means like a C+. Like if I log this on Letterboxd, or when I log this on Letterboxd, this is a 3-star movie. A C+. It has its issues, but I think it's enough for me to recommend it to someone to watch. So Julio, that now comes to you. What is your rating for Muriel's Wedding?
I think if this movie didn't have that massive high at the very end, I would be a little more in line with your score. But it really, I think it makes it all worth it, just to get to that point where Rhonda and Muriel are driving away with the music.
It does have a hell of an ending.
Yeah, I think that kind of retroactively smooths over wallpapers. my issues. The issues are still there, right? And it's still kind of a bumpy ride, but I think the highs are so high, and the highest high is, of course, Toni Collette's performance, which is all over the movie. So it ends up with a very positive balance, even with the weird things. And honestly, I don't know, maybe I need to watch it a couple more times before I really make up my mind about whether the wild swings into really dark tragedy, if they really work, or if I'm just letting them happen because I like everything else so much. You know, it's like I'm so into her performance, Toni Collette's performance, that I can just make myself embrace whatever else the movie's throwing at me as possible. But the dance number is spectacular. And again, it's like a hell of an accomplishment for this movie to really get me pumped about ABBA. You know, it's like not after the movie's over, but while the movie's happening, like I will dance and sing along, Dancing Queen and whatever else they're playing. So I'm going to go with 4 stars, which is not what I thought while I was watching it. I thought this was gonna be 3.5, and I don't remember. I think the first time I watched it, I ended up giving it 4 stars, also for the same reason, because when it was over, I was like, "Fuck yeah, he made it work." And I think there's something. I know we've had a couple of these before. There is something to just basically, literally watching a star being born.
Very fair.
It is the Toni Collette splash. She's just there, and it's exciting, and you know that only happens in one movie, in this one. So yeah, no, it's really good.
Tremendous. I think any way you cut that, that's an endorsement from the Contrarians. One just a bit higher than the other. Julio, we've talked about what the future holds for this project. What does the immediate future hold? Where are we going next?
Okay, immediate future, we're going back to Bogdanovich. We're going to do a Bogdanov film that is rotten, Alex. The party had to end at some point for Peter Bogdanovich. And Nickelodeon with 7%, that's going to be our first rotten Bogdanovich movie. 7% is pretty low, man.
It's got Ryan O'Neal, Tatum O'Neal, Burt Reynolds. Brian Keith, John Ritter.
Man,
what's the issue?
How could it go so wrong?
It's already going wrong, man.
All right. That's coming up next. Nickelodeon. It's a movie. It's not just a cable channel for kids. So, or maybe it is a movie about the cable channel for kids. Who knows, Alex?
I guess we'll find out in real time.
In real time. So check that out. And then, like I said, the episode after that, we're back to PJ Hogan, another PJ party. This one a little more Hollywood with Julia Roberts, Cameron Diaz, Demo Maroney, and making his triumphant return to the Contrarians, Rupert Everett.
About damn time. All right, Julio, I believe our work here is done. I think it's time to get out of here.
Let's do that.
Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. You can also check out his podcast Nación Combi about Peruvian current affairs and Marginal about economy. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
How much money